Good morning. Thank you, Nikita, so much for inviting me here. I'm going to be talking about AI and assessment, but really screen sharing is beyond me, so that's a strong start. But hi. So title of my presentation today is Right Reason, Right Type, Right Time. We'll get into so if we can move that, that would be me because I'm in charge of the laptop. There we go.
Oh, you can just minimize it.
It's all right, they're okay there. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, we'll go there. Okay, so I'm head of people science at Sapia.ai. We are a firm that has a AI-enabled chat interview product, which I'm very happy to talk about in great detail to anyone who will listen. I've done 20 years in talent assessment, starting from traditional psychometrics, usually in R&D or science lead roles. And these days, as head of people science at Sapia, I'm really passionate about removing the noise and the uncertainty and sometimes even the drama around AI and assessment. Now, I'm first speaker today, with maybe when you're thinking about who you enjoyed here today, I might benefit from the primacy effect. That would be great. But I'm concerned that Dan and Lily, who are up after me, are going to be really good. So I'm going to suffer from the contrast effect. And it is frustrating to be evaluated by all these biases, isn't it? If only there were a better way. My slides won't move on. That's a shame because that was going so well. Any ideas, anyone?
Just click on it.
Click. There we go. Right. I'm so good at AI, less good at laptop. So, and that is why I'm here to say it is no longer should we use AI in assessment. It is how, when, where, and why. There's a primacy effect, the contrast effect. These need to go away. We need these human biases not to be part of assessment anymore. Yes, hang on a sec. Okay, so I'm going to start with a cautionary tale. So as I mentioned, I've been in the industry a while, about 20 years. I know it doesn't look it. About 7 or 8 years ago, I was working for slightly more traditional consultancy, and those of you who work in R&D and science roles will be familiar. You're in the room with your sales colleagues, and you're there, and you're like, can you come and just talk about the science if they need the science? Okay, I'll come. I'll talk about the science. So the sales folks are on one side of the table, and your client's on the other side, potential client, and we take them through the solution. It's a great solution, good candidate experience, low adverse impacts, measure what they needed, all good, all good. Client says, hang on, before we decide to buy, where is the AI? The salespeople kind of panicked a bit and looked at me, and I went, there's an algorithm. That's technically AI. And the client was like, oh, good, great, fine. And the conversation carried on. Literally, that's what happened. And kind of the cautionary tale here is somebody had told these people that they needed to be securing a solution that used AI in order to be innovative and interesting. And we know HR and talent functions sometimes are kind of struggling for voice in a business, and one way they can get voice is to be seen to be very innovative. So they came in with that problem for us to solve. And that is exactly what we shouldn't be doing. AI is being presented as a solution before we've defined the problem. So what I want to do today is give you a framework. So that's not the trap you fall into when perhaps you're trying to evaluate, should I use AI in assessment? You should, but only the right way.
Kate, can I jump in online? We can only see half of the slide.
Oh,
I'm not sure why.
I wonder why. Can I only see half the slide? No, I've got no idea.
Sort of like the right hand third is just missing.
Maybe if I go on, what do you think? If I minimize this, maybe?
Minimize it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Is this better? Can we see the whole slide? Jesse? Joel? Still doesn't work.
It's the same.
What about now?
No, it has expanded the view, but the slide is still cut off on the right hand side.
Okay.
It's almost like the slide needs to be shifted to the left because there's a black narrow stripe down the left hand side. So if you could shift the slide over to the left, we might get it.
Okay. And now we had slideshow. Okay. Hopefully that's better.
That's it. You cracked it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us know. Appreciate that. Didn't he? Okay. So, AI and assessment, the money in the marketing. It's really, really overwhelming right now. There are so many vendors on the market going, we have AI in assessment, everything's going to be okay. The value of the market is massive. There are some figures up there. It's many, many billions by 2023 and well, millions and then a billion by 2030. It's also really hard to tell who's actually using AI and who's not. Kind of conservative estimate is at least 30% of organizations who are bringing AI startups to market actually have no real or tangible AI. It's just a marketing claim. But we can't really blame organizations for doing it because they attract so much more funding and investor interest if they're able to tangibly claim to have AI in their assessment. And so where we're getting to is an awful lot of claims. So we have AI vendors coming to market saying, because we have AI, our assessment is bias-free. And I've always said this, if any assessment provider is telling you their assessment is bias-free, they either haven't understood what bias is or they're fibbing. Those are the only two outcomes, promise you. Instantly identifies top talent. Somehow AI is supposed to have magical abilities to get us those elusive criterion validity coefficients that we couldn't get before. No, all the same noise is still there. There's the same issues with noisy outcome data, with trouble with measuring human traits. You know, we haven't magically solved that. Fully compliant with global regulations is another good one. We have a whole full-time person at Sapia whose job is to make sure we're compliant, and we have to be compliant in all the markets we operate in. And that is not all the markets. There are so many regulations out there. It's bewildering. So all that to say, we have all these amazing claims coming to market, and it can really start to feel like if you use AI in assessment, you'll be faster, happier, fitter, and more productive. Please tell me someone's a Radiohead fan and gets that. You're politely laughing, I'll take it. And that's not what we want to be doing. What we actually want to be doing is defining the problem we're trying to solve in our assessment workflows and then thinking about if AI is the right solution. And so to contextualize this, we've got a very mini history lesson. So for those of you who are operating in the industry in the early 2000s, you remember we brought in internet testing. Wonderful. What did that solve? Cost. It was much cheaper to administer psychometrics. Access. We could get to people in their homes. Scoring and reporting. Hands up who learned how to score a pen and paper psychometric. And now hands up who enjoyed it. Just Nikita. Oh, okay. You. All right. Fair enough. Thankfully, that sure went away with the internet. Game-based assessment. I know we have the mother of game-based assessment in the room. Lara, where are you? There she is. That solved another whole bunch of problems, that particular innovation. Candidate engagement. I love a psychometric almost as much as Nikita does, but tick, strongly agree, strongly agree, strongly agree. Even if you love it, it can get a little bit boring. Playing a game, not so much. Faking, again, feel free to talk to Lara about her PhD work, but game-based assessment solved a lot of the issues about faking in assessment. Wonderful. And DEI, the bias stats are really good for game-based assessment. Next, we have virtual reality in assessment. This kind of solved the problem of assessment starting to be seen quite dusty, quite old, no new innovations. Suddenly we were donning these virtual reality headsets and candidates were kind of walking around seeing if they could be courageous enough to step over virtual cliffs and that kind of thing. And it really kind of helped put Oxpsych back on the market in terms of assessment for lots of buyers. And now we have AI in assessment. Now, because AI is such a wide field, I believe it has potential to solve a wider range of problems than technologies that have preceded us, but only if we do it right. So we need to work out, do we want to measure? Is that what the problem we're trying to solve? Do you want to explain? AI can have wonderful applications for explaining results. Or do you want to enable? Is there some kind of manual process in our workflow that we think AI can solve? And that's why we get on to the next part of my framework, which is the right type. Stop using AI as a catch-all term. Okay, my chief data scientist gave me this diagram, so I will endeavour to do it justice. Artificial intelligence, catch-all term for when you get a machine to do something that would previously be done by human intelligence. So if we think back to that sales meeting 7 years ago, technically the calculator is AI. So technically when I sat there at a sales meeting went, there's an algorithm. I wasn't lying that there was AI in place, but it's stretching the truth. Under AI, under it as a catch-all term, there are some subtypes. So we have machine learning, where you have computer, if you like, learning from structured data sets. And this works well where you have those structured clean data sets. Under that, we have deep learning, neural networks. So it's kind of a subtype of machine learning, but the relationships become multifaceted. Think of lots of planets in the sky. and different strengths of relationships between them. That's how I always visualize it. Large language models, where you've trained something on potentially all the data on the internet, if you're Claude. And then Gen AI, where we're actually able to generate new text. And then what's missing from this diagram is, of course, agentic AI, where AI is, as a subset of LLM, starting to execute tasks autonomously. So we've got 5, 6 types. The lines always get blurred, that we can think about applying to our assessment workflows. So let's ground this a bit. Where should we use some of these AI types? Classic machine learning works really well. You've got a large data set, so it could be a data set about personality traits, for example. You can train using that data set, you can do stable feature extraction, and then you can report out on someone's scores. It also works really well if you're trying to do something like conduct a job analysis model or a framework or a hierarchy. You can do clustering type analysis. So there's some really good, well-established uses of machine learning already. Foundational model usage, or some people will know this as ChatGPT or Claude. So this works well when you want to use a general large language model in a zero or low shot mode. So what that means is you're either giving the LLM no examples to work from, or just a few examples. So this can be used in our world as a scoring rubric. Give it a prompt, give it some examples of what you're looking for, and it will run through your candidate outputs and provide you with some scoring rubrics. Some scores, some outputs. A fine-tuned foundational model is slightly different again. So this is where, rather than using whole of Claude, for example, you are using a curated data set. You've trained specifically on that data set. This works well if you need to score something like highly specific domain expertise. So if we're recruiting for nurses, for example, we're not going to use a general LLM for that. We can create a very specific knowledge base. That is not without its problems. As soon as you start curating a specific knowledge base, you risk bias, you risk overrepresentation of certain demographic groups. But it has a time and a place. And finally, agentic AI, which is definitely the most controversial type in assessment at the moment, because this is where we're having LLM agents execute on autonomous decisions. So at the moment, one of the most interesting applications is where you have agentic AI interviewing people, and it's responding and adapting as they speak. So it's going, oh, I'm going to ask a follow-up question, or, oh, I'm going to probe there. That to me is high risk at the moment. But then transparency, I was never a massive fan of adaptive testing back in the day when we were all building kind of IRT, big item banks. And if somebody got an answer incorrect, they would get an easier item. And if somebody got an answer correct, they would get a harder item, because it's quite easy for the algorithm to kind of go off on the wrong path. And before you know it, you're not assessing candidates at the right level. So here are some good use cases. So assessments of traits, we got properly curated data, good for machine learning. Design work. Oh, I've done that thing where you say your slide and then you realize you've got another slide. Free text assessment, great for foundational model usage. Think carefully about which model you're going to use. There was a great paper published recently, December 2025, so it's a paper from the future, thank you AI, where it's actually compared the personalities of Claude and GPT as raters. It found that GPT suffers from more central tendency and more halo. So it's just like human raters, like which one's in a bad mood that day. Explaining scores. So foundational models are fantastic for explaining what they've done. And in fact, if you're building your prompt, if you have it generate all of its explanations first, so this person scored well here because they did this, and here because they did this, that increases the robustness of the final score. So strongly recommend you do it that way. Fine-tuned LLM, high domain fidelity, and then agentic AI. So I think these do have a place in assessment, but they have a place in assessment to make the work of our talent colleagues easier. Scheduling assistance, executing on decisions that have been made by slightly more robust technology, and automated governance. So one of my favorite use cases is I've automated all my bias alerts. So if any of my workflows are showing group differences that are out of the range you would expect, I get an alert. Brilliant. That's exactly how agentic AI should be supporting assessment. Right time. So where in the hiring flow should you be using AI, and where should you exercise more caution? So I've broken down the hiring flow into 8 arbitrary categories, and we can argue about whether these are the right categories or not. Who is using AI in one of these boxes at the moment and wants to be brave and tell the room about it? No one? No one?
Okay, just give them a few seconds. There might be introverted.
Mhm.
Georgi.
At Hogan, we have a upcoming product with, can you? Yes, thank you. Um, yes, so something between candidate feedback and hiring manager. Yeah, candidate feedback, like reporting. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yes,
Candidate feedback reports.
yes, yes. And previously, I've done a lot of scoring. So in the previous company I worked at, which I don't want to mention the name, they're not worth it anymore. Yes. But what do you mean by assessment design, Kate?
So one of the first place I used AI in my work, and this was before I was at Sapia, was to write self-report items for a motivational questionnaire. It does a really good job. If I remember the analysis correctly, the best performing items were the ones the GPT wrote, which was personally offensive to me. But
What was the best item?
oh, I can't remember. I knew you'd
Yeah.
ask me that as well.
Oh, you know me so well. Anybody else wants to share? Ooh, cheeky.
Yes.
We have two. So we have Hogan, and then we're going to move to Savile, and then we're going to move somewhere else, and then we're going to move to Stuart Beaumont in no particular order.
Yeah, so Nikita mentioned Wave Connect. So within that, we've got AI role profiling as part of job analysis. So you put in a job description, it pumps out the role fit in terms of the most important behaviors, but then a human expert reviews that to make sure.
Brilliant. I love that use case.
By the way, I have seen Connect, and it's quite nifty, if I have to say so myself. Alex?
Thank you very much. I'm assessment manager at British Airways. I was designing some assessment center materials, and one of them was for an engineer role. So I used AI to create like an article about a new hydraulic pump, because I would have no idea how the benefits of a hydraulic pump are. So it was more to kind of supplement the assessment center materials, but not any of the interview stuff, mainly just like the materials themselves.
Brilliant.
Matter expertise. I remember when I was presenting my first presentation to aviation psychologists. I'm still banned from that conference. But I was like, the poster was called, "Can I trust you with my plane?" And I thought it was so cool because it was about trust in pilots. And it's like, you have no idea about aviation. Somebody said, it's like, why? A pilot would never call the aircraft a plane because a plane means a wing. And I'm like, crap. So we're still friends. And now, Stuart.
Yeah, this is a coaching example rather than a hiring one. And it's not AI that I did myself. It was done for me. This is really helpful. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. This was a mapping of the generic leadership competencies of the tool that we were using with the actual leadership capabilities described by the company that we were working with. So that kind of mapping was really helpful, and it generated some hypotheses around strengths and development areas. That was a really good starting point for a coaching conversation. So
It's quite
that was cool.
impressive how good large language models are at that stuff, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
LLMs, one of my favorites. If you're ever creating text, like, well, let's say description of extroversion, etc., it's always for a rule base. It's always fun to then ask it a following prompt. And now, can you edit it to be more appealing to the person with those personality traits? And why? Yes, Renee. Fantastic.
Hi, I just wanted to say, I guess, thought that needs to be a clear distinction between like assessing a job or something that is prototypical, like common to a lot of people, and then assessing people, individual people, or the differences between people, which is what psychometrics is about. They're very different things. So if we talk about assessing a role versus an individual, I think the AI is very good at this stage for assessing what is common to a lot of people, because it scrapes so much information from wherever it does scrape the information, but it doesn't have the information about specific individuals unless you give them a lot of information about specific individuals. So I don't think it can be as good there, at least yet.
It's a nice segue on to my next slide. Thank you. Okay. So, I am from Sapia. So, having asked you where you're using AI, what we like to do at Sapia is be really open about where we use it in our product and where we don't, and the reasons for that. And you may agree or disagree, but anyway, nice examples. So we have a product which is a chat interview, very simple, 5 structured interview questions. You type your responses, phone, desktop, untimed, very nice, very inclusive. In terms of its assessment capabilities, I am happy to share the tech manual in terms of how it stacks up in its ability to accurately assess personality or competencies. We do both, but I'm just going to talk you through where we're using AI in the flow of that product. So we have a great example of job analysis over here. So we have a tool called Job Analyzer Studio. It's been trained on 37,000 job descriptions. We input the client's job description. But we also have a conversation. The human in the loop is a really important principle. And one, if you are thinking of bringing it into your workflows, you should be asking, where's the human in the loop and what's been automated? How can AI assist me? Not necessarily replace me. So I'll typically have a conversation with the employers. We'll go through, what does success look like in this role, so on and so forth, all the typical job analysis questions you might ask. And what we get is a really strong competency recommendation. And I don't have stats, you'll have to take my word for it. But typically the recommendation, I only make a change about 10% of the time. It does a very, very good job if you give it the right inputs, which of course we can't have garbage in, garbage out. So I think that's a great application of AI. It's Gen AI in this case. We don't use it to intimidate. Every candidate who applies to the role gets the same 5 questions that have been defined by the job analysis process. And that's because of the reasons I talked to before. I think the arguments for adaptive testing or agentic AI deciding its own questions autonomously, I don't think are stacking up yet. The gain doesn't match the cost. And also, we're all IOs. We know the benefit of giving the same questions to the same candidates from a fairness and rigor perspective. So we don't use it candidate side. They see the 5 questions. We do use it in scoring. So I talked about using foundational models. We use Claude. Claude has the best personality when it comes to scoring. So it's much less punishing than GPT. And what we do is we've designed a chain of thought prompting framework that will work through the free text responses to those questions. And it really holds its hand. I think of it as like a little kind of best friend assessor working the kind of LLM through the scoring, because it says, have you hit the BIs? Are the examples of good quality? Are the answers relevant? How often has someone mentioned this behavior? So on and so forth. It goes through 5 or 6 different criteria in order to score the competencies. We don't use AI in the scoring model. Once you've resolved the competency scores, it's a very simple bit of maths to get their overall recommendation, because I don't believe in black box AI. I think you should always be able to explain how you got to that final score. We do use Gen AI in the hiring manager reports. So this is a really important principle, that if you're going to generate a score, a competency score for someone using AI, you should be able to explain it to the nth degree. And that's what these reports do. Georgi got 4 out of 5 on confidence, because in question 1 he said this, and in question 2 he said this, and in question 3 he said this, and this tied up with this BI and this BI and this BI. It's like reading a really exhaustive assessment report, but it's exactly the standard I believe we should be working to. So bringing it all together, I promised you a framework. Here it is. We'll be sending the slides out, so you can take photos, but they're also coming. Think about using the right kind of AI. What do you need to do? Have you got a lot of data you need to understand? Maybe it's machine learning. If you're doing judging and scoring, you could use an LLM, use the right one. You can use it to generate material. I think we're all quite familiar with that one by now. If you're thinking about a series of steps you want to enact and there's no decisions involved, then maybe agentic AI is appropriate. Right time in the workflow. So pre-assessment, I think there are loads of good, robust applications, and we can use it quite freely. During, there's much more interaction, there's much more risk, especially if we're talking about varying the questions or the AI interacting dynamically with the candidate. Post-assessment, I think it'd be really good. It's going to be really good for explaining scores and also things like follow-up comms. And the right reason. So define the problem you're trying to solve and walk into a room going, I want the AI. I don't think any of you would do that, for the record. And I'm actually adding a 4th component to the framework, because I'm head of people science, which is right time, right reason, right type, right time, and the right science. If you're engaging with AI in hiring, the standards haven't changed. The assessment science principles remain: reliability, validity. Was it built by scientists, or was it built by a data scientist in their garage? These are important questions to be asking. We publish a lot. Here are some pictures of all the things we publish: white papers, peer-reviewed journals, so on and so forth. Do visit Sapia.ai and download some. They'll probably have fewer tech glitches than I've had today. And also, if you've enjoyed this talk, tech glitches notwithstanding, I'm really passionate about making sure we bring science into the AI debate. So I'm going to be talking at DOP in January on Sapia's journey as to how we define what reliability and validity means when we're talking about an LLM scoring, because the standards are still there, but the tests you can apply are slightly different. And I think our whole profession's on that journey. So I want to do a bit of building in public and share what's worked for us and what hasn't. Thank you for your attention.
Fantastic.